During the next half hour, we'll talk to Archbishop Blase Cupich about the Renew My Church initiative and his hope for the future of the Archdiocese. You'll hear how the mercy of God shaped the life of one of our local deacons, and we'll hear from the head of Catholic Charities on the impact the state budget impasse is having on social service agencies across the Archdiocese. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Hello and welcome. I'm Todd Williamson from the Office for Divine Worship with the Archdiocese of Chicago, and joining me here in the studio, as always, is Archbishop Blase Cupich. Archbishop, it's wonderful to see you again.
Todd, thanks so much. I really enjoy being with you.
Not at all, thank you. We have a number of things, a number really of significant and important things to talk about.
There's a lot
today.
happening.
There is. Let's start with this. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has recently begun a new national dialogue between Catholic and Muslims. And you have been appointed or accepted the position of co-chair of that national dialogue. Could you tell us a bit about that? What is it? Why is it important?
Well, the Bishops' Conference through the Ecumenical Office has looked for a way to have some outreach with the Muslim community in an official way. We have a number of ongoing dialogues with different faith communities, and so it was thought to be important, and so I received a call asking if I would do this. And I knew that there were other obligations that I had, not only here in the Archdiocese, but on some other committees. So I was able to trade off of some in order to make sure that I could continue to do this. So I know that the time that I can give outside of the diocese, the Archdiocese, is limited. Because I really want to make sure that my focus is here.
It's important dialogue, certainly, particularly now in today's world. But for the last 2 decades, there have been regional Catholic-Muslim dialogues in the East, the Midwest, the West. What's the relationship of this new national committee from the USCCB?
Well, it's a way by which we can pull together all the learnings from those various regional conversations that have taken place. Of course, we've had our own conversation with the Interfaith organization we have in the Archdiocese that has been built up over the years, and I've enjoyed coming together with various leaders of the Muslim community. In fact, their leadership has just recently met with me, and I'll be putting on my schedule an opportunity to be part of their Ramadan celebration.
All right, excellent. Well, good luck with the
efforts
and your role in it.
Thank you.
On a related topic, we're recording this the day after you gave the annual Cardinal Bernardine Jerusalem Lecture. The title of your talk last night was Religious Responsibility in an Age of Affluency and Poverty, in the key of Pope Francis. What were the main points of your presentation last night?
Well, I wanted to differentiate between the way that people who have a religious imagination and a faith-based outlook on life look at being responsible people. And so I looked at the common biblical and faith heritage between the Christians and Jewish communities to remind the audience that we really do look at human responsibility differently than perhaps a view that wants to limit responsibility to just taking care of myself, being responsible for myself. And so I tried to look at ways in which Pope Francis has been talking about this, because I believe that many of the points he's making about the economy and the ecology are really framed in terms not as imposing things on people, but inviting people to take responsibility as adults for the economy, that it works for people, that people are not excluded, but also for the ecology, in which we realize that our environment continues to be degraded by abuse of it. So it was, I think, an opportunity for me to introduce people to what the Pope is saying. But the more interesting piece for me was the question and answer afterwards.
Oh, really?
That went almost as long as the talk itself. People were genuinely interested in what the Pope had to say, and also asked a few things about the Catholic Church as well.
Really? What were some of those questions, or the ones that stick in your mind?
Well, they wanted to know about one of the topics we're going to talk here today, about what's happening in Catholic Charities, and we'll get into that a little later. But also the work that we're doing in our schools. Many of the leaders who were in that audience of the Jewish faith have looked for opportunities to be supportive of our efforts in Catholic education, because they know that it's the best vehicle for many people to get out of poverty. And so it was a wonderful exchange, and I learned a great deal about the way that people think about the Catholic Church very positively, and I felt very much affirmed.
Wonderful. Maybe just for our viewers in these last few seconds in this segment, could you just briefly describe what is the Cardinal Bernardin Jerusalem Lecture?
It was started now 21 years ago. This was the 21st occasion, and it was started by Cardinal Bernardin and members of the Jewish leadership.
Here in Chicago.
Here in Chicago, and he gave the first one 21 years ago in Jerusalem. It was a year before he died. He died 20 years ago this year, on November the 14th. And so what he wanted to do was look for an opportunity in which the past that was in many ways in need of healing could be a way for us to look at what we need to do to build a relationship, a friendship with the Jewish community. And it has really allowed us as two faith communities to come together in mutual interest, but also to heal some of the wounds that were there, caused many times by the way the Church looked upon and treated Jewish people. And so it was important for us to continue that.
The very first two topics we've just finished talking about, two dialogues, right?
Exactly.
The Catholic Church, Muslim, and the Catholic Church and the
And
Jewish
dialogue
community.
is the word of the Pope, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It certainly is, but it's also a word that you have been using often, particularly in regard to some significant developments here in our own archdiocese. Recently, you wrote a letter, a vision, a hope, Renew My Church. It was published in the Catholic New World. It was posted, and it is posted on the Archdiocesan website. It was sent to all the parishes in the Archdiocese. Renew My Parish. What is that? Why is it significant now?
Well, I wanted to present a vision of how we should look at ourselves going forward. We need to look for a way in which our parishes really are given the resources to be more vibrant. There is an inequality in the system in our archdiocese. We have parishes that are very vibrant because they have resources. They're wealthier parishes. Other ones struggle just to get by. They're very small and shrinking communities. What do we need to do in order to make sure that every Catholic can belong to a faith community, to a parish, where all of the services that we should be able to expect in a parish are taking place? And we also have to pay attention to the facts that demographics have changed. We have many parishes that are very, very small, and also attend to the fact that we're not going to be able to staff all of them going forward. We're in a position now where we believe in the next 15 years we're probably going to have half the number of pastors who can pastor our parishes. What does that mean going forward? But also we also need to attend to an infrastructure that needs support. So my hope would be that we would be able to come together in a reasonable way through dialogue, by having parishes look at how they can work together. It will mean some closings. It will mean some consolidations. All major archdioceses have gone through or are going through this at this point. But the end result is, how are we going to be stronger? How are we going to have more vibrant faith communities so that the faith can be passed on?
I think that's a terribly important comment and point to make for our viewers, because I think many people in the Archdiocese, maybe in their more cynical moods, say that this is all about closings and all about money. And what I've
Yes.
heard over and over from you is this is more than about money.
Right.
This is more than about closing parishes.
It is. It's about where we want to be at the end of this process. We want to have parishes where everyone can find the life of Christ passed on to them and their families, where it's celebrated, and also where we know it's going to be sustainable going through the future. We have closed schools and parishes over the last 20 years, a good number of them, and it's little by little every year. We need to be more strategic. We need to make sure that we're not slowly just hemorrhaging, but instead of allowing the future to manage us, we should try to manage the future.
There, exactly that. And that change has already, in transition, has already taken place in our own Pilsen neighborhood here in Chicago. 6 parishes have already begun a reorganization
Right.
process, right? St. Anne Parish will now become the worship site of St. Paul Parish. Providence of God will become the worship site for St. Procopius Parish. St. Adalbert is closing. The schools of St. Anne, St. Pius, St. Procopius, they'll all operate as usual, but this is a significant change for the better in that area.
Well, it is. It's also taking note, as I mentioned earlier, of our ability to staff these various places. And this was a process that this is a decision that was remade, was the result of a process that was on for a little over a year, in which those communities came together. They made the recommendation to me, and then I just validated it. So the decision came out of that collaboration, that dialogue among all those faith communities and their leaders.
Mm-hmm. And it's a process that's only just beginning. We'll be in that for quite a while.
Exactly.
Yeah. If we can maybe switch from the local to maybe a more global
Sure.
topic, certainly most recently, the visit of Pope Francis to Mexico. Nationwide, global attention. What was significant about his recent pastoral visit there?
Well, he, of course, stopped in Mexico, in Cuba before that, to meet with the Patriarch of Moscow, which I think is a very important aspect. What he did was, at that moment, begin the healing of a division that went on for a millennium. The Bishop of Rome and the Patriarch of Moscow had not met in 1,000 years.
Oh my.
And so this was an opportunity for the Holy Father to do this. And it was a wonderful way to begin his trip then to Mexico, because it showed that he could go to this event in Cuba to bring about the healing that was necessary, but also to continue that message as he went to Mexico, and had some very strong things to say in terms of the church leadership, but also the civic government and those who are drug lords who prey upon people. So the Holy Father sure had the wind at his back.
Yeah, one of the most exciting moments of his visit was the Mass that was celebrated on the U.S.-Mexican border,
Right.
Juarez and El Paso.
Right.
What do you think was the significance of that?
Well, he wanted to let people know, especially as he looked across the border into the United States and realized that there were many of the Mexican citizens there who had come into our country, who were looking for a way to regularize their situation, that he was with them, and that he is a man who takes seriously his title as Pontifex, which is bridge builder. He is more in favor of building bridges and walls, as he puts it. And I think that it's one of those things where symbols say so much more than words, and his being there was very symbolic.
He is certainly calling all of us to those values, particularly now, right, during the great Jubilee of Mercy. And in fact, bringing it back a bit more local here to our own archdiocese. And it seems like that mercy of God is always at the forefront of what the Pope is preaching. And of course, the Pope called for the current Jubilee of Mercy year, as we just said. As part of that observance, our own radio TV office is producing a series of videos called Mercy Moments, in which individuals talk about how they were touched by the mercy of God. Archbishop, here's one with our own Deacon John Cook.
I had some idea that I wanted to be something. I had a feeling that God was calling me to be something. What it was, I wasn't sure. One day I was in church and I was looking up at the altar and I saw Deacon Hubbard, who was a deacon for us at that time for some 20-something years. And I thought about that particular vocation because the deacon pretty much, it appeared, did everything the priest did, except he was a married clergic. And I said, hey, I think this is maybe what I can do. And so I prayed. I said, Lord, I said, I believe that I want to be a deacon. And I said, I think you might want me to be one as well. I felt that I've been running from God anyway for some 8 years already. And I just wanted to have that discussion with him. So I said, when I go to church tomorrow, I'm to lecture. And when I'm done lecturing, I'm asking you if you would have me inspire someone to come up to me afterwards and say, hey, you know what, John, you ought to be a deacon. And so I prayed that prayer. And then the very next day, after I got through lecturing, when Mass was over, the deacon's wife came up to me and she says, John, stop playing around and come on and be a deacon. You know the deacon is about to retire. So I knew then that God had answered my prayers, and he answered it more clearly than I had asked. He didn't have her ask me to think about it. She told me to stop playing around. In 2012, I had another serious illness, and that caused me to go into the hospital, and thank God my life was saved. And it wasn't a month and a half when I was out of the hospital when I got this premonition, you need to build a little league. But I didn't feel like doing it at the time. And I remember saying, oh Lord, come on, I just got out of the hospital, now you want me to do a little league? And he nudged me and said, yeah. I said, well, if that's what you want, Lord, please give me some kind of sign that would show me this is what you want. So one day, not long after that prayer, I was driving down the street where my clubhouse resides, and I could hear this faint yelling behind my car as I'm driving, Mr. Cook, Mr. Cook. And I wondered what that was, and I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw two guys running after my car. So I pulled over, and these kids came up to my window and they said, Mr. Cook, are you still gonna do the Little League? And I said, you doggone right I am. And so from that prayer, from those kids' response, I knew that God wanted me to do it. There was no doubt in my mind. What I've learned over the years is that God answers prayers. I've learned that my faith, if I follow it, if I hear that voice in my head, that if I believe that it's God, then more than likely it is. And so in each case where I've prayed for God to answer my prayers, He has done that. And in each case where I felt like my prayers were answered, I followed that faith, and God has never let me down. He has shown me each time that He is with me and that He's opening doors continually for me.
To view all of the Mercy moments and for additional information on the Jubilee of Mercy, go to jubileemercy.org. That's jubileemercy.org. Please stay with us because in a moment, the President and CEO of Catholic Charities joins us to discuss the state's inability to pass a budget and the impact that's having on social service agencies. We'll be right back in just a moment.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
Hello and welcome back to Catholic Chicago. I'm here with Archbishop Blase Cupich, and we're joined in studio now by Monsignor Michael Boland. Monsignor, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're in quite a significant moment in not just our archdiocesan history, but in our state history. The state is at an impasse in terms of passing a working budget. And that has an effect on the Archdiocese of Chicago. How?
Well, it's a great impact on the way we provide our services. The state of Illinois owes Catholic Charities this morning about $25 million for services already rendered to the weakest in our society, the elderly, children, so many people who really rely on Catholic Charities for help. So one of the great challenges is not just how it affects Catholic Charities, though, it's really the social service network in the state of Illinois. That system is fragile on a good day, just because of how poorly social services have been funded over the years in the state of Illinois. And once you start taking these, it's like a building blocks, and once you start taking the blocks away, all of a sudden the whole thing crumbles. So they don't realize sometimes, our elected officials, that this is a very fragile system, and people depend very much on it. And what will happen if that system begins to further unravel or fall apart? That's what keeps me up at night, just because that's what the challenges are. As I see these agencies, this morning I had emails from 2 different agencies that are closing. So, from across the state. So every day you're getting these notifications, and it means less services, more obstacles to the poor, and it's just not right, and we should not allow that to happen.
So this is not just a political issue, this is dealing with people's lives.
Right.
It's not a partisan issue. It is political in the sense that it has to do with the people, as the word polis means. It has to do with how we put together a social network that's going to make sure that the weakest don't fall through the cracks in life. And Monsignor's point is well taken. It's not just the fact that the funding threatens that the services will discontinue, but it's going to eviscerate a whole system that we have built up in Catholic Charities over many years, because once you begin to lay people off, you're going to, you can't realize it, think that they're going to be able to come back once you're going to hire again. You have a whole network that's going to fall apart, and you're going to have to rebuild. And that's much more expensive and also much more damaging to the poor.
Right. And my biggest, fear is that, you're talking about bringing meals to elderly people, in their homes, and they're doing, helping them doing the daily activities, the adult daycares, the child daycares, those things allow parents to work if their children are in early childhood, and we have 7 in some of the most impoverished communities in the city. Once they go, that means the parents can't work. If the parents can't work, then they spiral further into poverty. If it's an adult daycare. And not only are all the great things that happen in an adult daycare or in a child care facility for the children or for the adults, but it allows that family unit to be strengthened in a time when it is challenging. So to withdraw these things just means that people don't realize these things are a network. So there's 1, 2, or 3 services wrapped around a person, allows that person, for a senior, to stay at home where they want to be. But they are, and sometimes frail, or they don't have any other resources. So to wrap those services around them are critical to allow them to stay at home where they want to be. And once you start unraveling that, my worry is what happens if they don't get food, or what happens if, they don't have other services that are provided for them. It's life or death. A couple weekends ago it was 8 degrees outside, all weekend, so cold out. These services are life or death. This is not just, to me a budget is a budget and it's numbers, but behind those budgets are people, and people that we face, 1 million people in the city rely on Catholic Charities for help, and that's why we are speaking out about it.
Monsignor, I think this is a terribly important point to make. It's beyond the numbers, as you just said, are the lives of human people. How many people does Catholic Charities here in the Archdiocese serve? Maybe just give us some sense.
It's 1.3 million people a year, 1 million people in the city alone. Every 30 seconds someone comes and calls Catholic Charities for help, whether they come into the office or call or are served in some ways with us going out. We have 166 different locations in the Archdiocese, but all of them are places where staff also go out to see people. So oftentimes it isn't just an office building. Our office is the home of the person we're visiting or providing those services for. So, this is an incredible network of ways that Catholic Charities serves, in the name of the gospel,
Yes.
those who are struggling.
And in fact, the Catholic Charities is really doing the work of the government. The government does not have, the state does not have the infrastructure to reach into the lives of people, because the people that we serve are not necessarily Catholic. We're serving the citizens of this state. It is an obligation of the state to step forward and be supportive. The Catholic Charities, in fact, is doing that work. All they're asking for is to make sure that the contracts that were arranged in order for these services to happen would be honored by reimbursements.
Right.
I was listening to you on the radio just before we began taping here. You made a point. This isn't just affecting the Archdiocese of Chicago and Catholic Charities, it's affecting others as well.
Yes, I mean, many agencies across the state are being closed or reducing their services. There's just a lot of people who do rely on Catholic Charities in so many different ways. And we rely on other agencies. So, social work is this network. And so for us, we're always calling places, or they are calling us to help out or to advocate for a client or try to help somebody. And as the Archbishop said, the state does come to Catholic Charities because of its expertise and because of its mission and because it is connected. And those are the things the state, which does not have any of those things. And so that's why it's so important that our elected officials take the responsibility that they have been given to actually come together and to support a balanced budget so that these programs like at Catholic Charities, but it's also affecting education, it's also affecting the health sector. Each of these sectors are all just unraveling without a lack of a budget. So it's really frightening when you see how it affects so many people in our state.
Monsignor, what can the average Catholic do? What can the parishioners in our own parishes do in the face of this?
Well, I would strongly encourage, one, if they'd like to volunteer at Catholic Charities, they're most welcome to volunteer to support Catholic Charities in any way that they can. The main thing I think today is we would say, would you contact your legislators, especially the leadership, contact them and let them know that you are asking them to be able to produce a balanced budget and to come together. And I think the elected officials have to hear that voice from the people, that now it's necessary for them to step up and to be able to get a balanced budget. I mean, going 8 months, now getting ready to go into the 9th month of a year without a budget is just outrageous.
Archbishop?
Well, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the people who work for Catholic Charities. There are over 3,000 who get up every day to provide services to people. Many times we don't know the wonderful sacrifices that they're making, the contribution that they're making to the state, and it's under a great leadership of Msgr. Boland and his staff. So I think we should be very proud. Catholic Charities helps the Catholic Church put its best foot forward each and every day.
Amen. Amen. To find out who your elected officials are, call the State Board of Election at 217-782-4141 and press number 0 when prompted. You can also visit www.elections.il.gov and click on New District Official Search. Thank you, Monsignor Boland. Thank you, Archbishop. It's a pleasure to have both of you here. Great to talk about these important elements. And you're always welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I appreciate it much.
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Thank you so much,
very much.
Monsignor.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you to our viewers for watching. I'm Todd Williamson. We'll be back next time for more Catholic Chicago. Thank you very much.
We invite you to watch segments of Catholic Chicago and hundreds of additional Catholic videos at youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.